good evening. I'm Melisa Idris. Welcome to Consider This. This is the show where we want you to consider and then reconsider what you know of the news of the day. Tonight, we bring you a very special 1-hour episode with 3 people who are contesting in the upcoming Selangor State Elections. Now, over the next hour, I hope to explore what it truly means to be a state assembly person in today's evolving political landscape. I'd like us to unravel the complexities of the role, question the prevalent narratives, and to also challenge the candidates to explain not only their vision, but also how they plan to lead, reform, and break free from the shackles of legacy politics. Let's meet the candidates who are vying for a seat in the Selangor State Assembly. We'll start with Dr. Afif Bahardin, who was the N10 Seberang Jaya Assembly person under PKR for 2 terms from 2013. He then moved to Bersatu, which led him to being expelled from the Penang Assembly in March last year under the state's anti-hopping law. Now, for a period during his tenure as Assembly person, he served as the State Exco in charge of agriculture, agro-based industries, rural development and health. Now, he will be contesting in the Selangor State Elections as Bersatu's candidate for N33 Taman Medan. It's a straight fight against PKR's Ahmad Pawanci, and who is a former councillor with Petaling Jaya City Council. Next, we have Abi Lim, who is the MUDA candidate for N36 Bandar Utama. She's contesting for the first time and is going to be going up against incumbent Jamaluddin of Pakatan Harapan and also Gerakan's Alif Taufid of Perikatan Nasional. Rajiv Rishyakaran rounds up our panel today. He is the incumbent assembly person for N34 Bukit Gasing, a seat that he has held since 2013. He is seeking to defend it in the upcoming Selangor State Elections against challengers from Gerakan and MUDA. So welcome all of you to Consider This. I appreciate you being here today amid a very busy campaigning period. I want to begin our conversations with our conversation today with your observations as to the prevailing mood on the ground. I want to know how you would describe voter engagement, what level of voter engagement, what level of voter interest that you have observed in the past 11 days of campaigning. Abi, may I begin with you? What have been your insights, your observations?
Well, throughout the past 11 days, Bandar Utama is a huge constituent. We have 70,000 voters, so it was 50,000 before. So there's an additional 20,000 voters from the Undi 18. So we've been speaking to the seniors, young, and also the working class. And reception has been good on how they are looking at, accepting MUDA as a third force, a lot of issues around there, and also they have a very active community there. If you know BU, they all have their own BU residents, a resident association, they have the DJROA. So those are really active communities that I have the privilege to talk to them, work with them, because they're the type of proactive people that will just say like, look, this is what's happening, and these are the solutions I need, and please help us to do something about this.
Okay, so they're active in their communities, but are they interested in the upcoming state elections? Because there's 2 different things, right?
Yep. They are very interested because they realize that a lot of community maintenance programs, it's all linked up to their aduns and also local councillors.
Okay, excellent. Let's go to Afif. Afif, what have been your observations?
I think people are more excited now with the hype of these 6 state elections that's ongoing, with Pakatan Nasional definitely gearing up before the election, coming in and campaigning that, saying we are government in waiting and giving a huge challenge to Pakatan Harapan. So the response has been very well compared to when I contested back in November while I was in Shah Alam. I have that experience in Shah Alam and now in Taman Medan. So I compare both. I see the acceptance towards Pakatan Nasional. People are more open to openly declare the support to Pakatan Nasional today. I think the wave is coming from the north and now is residing in Selangor. But it's yet to see how the voters will vote during this coming state election on Saturday. But one thing positive on one side is that when I compare the response across the race, especially the Malays are tremendous. the response towards Perikatan Nasional. But I see an increasing number of positive response. Even we are seeing non-Malays, Chinese, Indians are coming to our programs and attending our ceramahs at night, and also listening to our manifestos, what we want to offer. And as Perikatan Nasional in Selangor as a whole, the list of candidates that we put up for this state election, definitely we came in with a certain image to show that we are ready to represent the multiracial society of Selangor. So I think this is where, hopefully, with those kind of messaging, we'll be able to garner trust, especially among the Selangor voters this coming Saturday.
So Taman Medan as a state constituency has been around for a long time, but also is Malay majority.
Yes.
If I have
with
that correctly.
89,000 residents, 60,000 plus voters, we have 65% majority Malay in that particular seat. And majority of these Malay communities are from the B40 groups. And we have certain segments within the PJ Old Town and then PJS1 who are a bit of affluent in nature. But the main concern I could see when I move about around Petaling Jaya, the concerns of people in Taman Medan is slightly different compared to people in Bukit Gasing and also probably in Bandar Utama. There's a lot of sense that the feeling is that there's discrimination to a certain degree, there's inequality to their side because of their living condition. They feel that the local council have not been able to provide the services that they needed. They are in a dire need to have a better infrastructure, better maintenance for their housing flats and also apartments. So these are the issues that of a concern to the people of Taman Medan.
Okay.
Be it either they are Malays, Chinese or Indians, these are the major issues that they are raising to me, especially during this campaign period.
All right, we'll deep dive into the issues that were raised by the people you meet along the campaign trail. Rajiv, talk to me about Bukit Gasing.
Hi, thank you so much for having me on the show. Bukit Gasing has been relatively positive. I've been very active, doing walkabouts, meeting people in this election period. I think that this builds up on the last 10 years of my engagement with the community, and by and large, the vast majority that I meet are very supportive for another term for Harapan in Bukit Gasing. But I think overall, Selangor still has not reached the peak that we would get in the general election. And I think that is a challenge in state elections. You've seen in all the other state elections where the excitement hasn't reached the same level as parliamentary elections. And so that's something that we need to keep engaging people and pressing into them. That is very important because we're not just choosing local representation, that's also important, but we also are choosing the state government for the next 5 years.
4 days to polling day.
Yes, 4 days.
Do you think that your potential voters have already made up their minds? Do you think that they are quite decided or still undecided? Are they on the fence, Rajiv?
I think there's a sizable amount of people that's on the fence this time compared to previously.
Why would they be on the fence if you've been in the seat for 2 terms since almost 10 years now, right?
I'm speaking larger in the Selangor context and not so much in Bukit Gasing.
What about Bukit Gasing?
All right, Bukit Gasing, so far the response of the people I've met have been largely positive. Yes, there are some people frustrated with the current government. That's to be expected. There's no way to win 100%
Understood.
Support, but I would say that I've been getting very good responses from the people that I meet.
Okay. If that segment that are still undecided, what do you
Yes.
think might sway them in the last 4 days?
I think it comes down to the national sentiment as well.
National
A lot of
sentiment.
voters are actually also still looking at the national sentiment. And is this a vote for the Anwar Ibrahim government or is this a vote against that government? I think that is a factor that comes into play. I think on a local level, the sentiment is quite settled, if I read the ground correctly, in terms of those who already know me, those who maybe are unhappy with some of the decisions made by the government, and for the rest of them who are very happy with the performance of the government. I think we have demonstrated to them again and again how we can continuously add services in Selangor. We have added so many programs from 2008 until now. We've been building up on it. little by little every year, showing that we can continuously stretch the tax-paying dollar further to serve them better by good management.
Okay.
And that's something that it's priceless, because you don't see the same thing happening in some other states. So if you take, for example, Terengganu has more or less the same budget as Selangor.
Terengganu has the same budget, okay.
Yeah, more or less the same budget as Selangor, but we have 5 times more people in Selangor than Terengganu. Yet a lot of the services that we have in Selangor are not available in Terengganu. The Selangor government gives birthday vouchers to every senior citizen in Selangor. We give free water to those earning less than 6,000 ringgit a month. We provide free buses. We have many affordable housing schemes for sale and for rent. We help businesses with their microfinancing when they start up and as they grow until they become medium-sized businesses. And the list goes on. We have 46 of this initiative Peduli Rakyat. And I think that's something to be proud of and something that we should cherish.
Okay, so we'll come back to some of the initiatives and maybe some of the concerns.
Very okay.
Abby and Afif, what do you think in terms of whether there are still the undecideds in the state elections, and what might change their mind in this late stage of campaign, Abby?
I sense a lot of frustration because a lot of people vote for reforms, a lot of people vote for change, and all these changes have been done and nothing has been done. So there is a lot of frustration going on the ground. And hence, I feel like a lot of people were actually deciding not to vote because they felt like it doesn't even matter which government comes in.
Abstaining to vote.
Yeah, so it's like protest votes. So this is where MUDA comes in to provide that alternate option as a check and balance for any government.
Okay, frustration in the state level governance or the federal level governance, according to your observations?
So both, according to my observation, both the state government actions and also federal, it's sort of interrelated.
It's in the voters' mind, it's cannot disentangle the two.
No, yeah, because they see the top leadership as the top,
the
top leader,
yes,
of
okay,
the whole
understand.
administration. But if you look at the local councils, like in Bandar Utama, a lot of the parks are, not really well maintained. And if you look at the public transportation, it has been going on for the past 10 years and nothing has been, it has been improved, but we could be better. Pedestrian accessibility, interconnectivity between public transportation and pedestrian accessibility is not safe for people to even decide to use public transportation. So right now, when you think about Bandar Utama, there's no other options other than using a car. And you have to strategize when, the timing, whether you want to enter and leave Bandar Utama. So that is one of the my main manifesto as well, to target on people first urban planning, because development should be for people, not developers.
Okay. Afif?
I have the age to compare from my previous constituent, which is in Seberang Jaya, comparing to Taman Medan. It's almost of the same demography. A lot of majority Malays, B40 groups living in a congested area. Taman Medan is much more congested compared to Seberang Jaya. But when I see the service of the local council, especially for Petaling Jaya, who is known to be one of the richest local council in the nation, I can proudly say that I've done better in Seberang Jaya, especially for my parks, for my public transport, even for the cleanliness in terms of garbage collection, and even how we do urban development and also introduce some of the SDG goals within our constituent back in Seberang Jaya. But when I come here to Taman Medan, I don't expect to see this in Selangor, because for me, stop comparing to Terengganu or Kelantan. They have their own challenges. Selangor should be compared to Singapore, to Taiwan, to Hong Kong, which this has not been happening, because the direction of the state government is only political. It's always about, we are better than Kelantan. But even if you compare to Seberang Jaya, I could proudly say Seberang Jaya is better than Selangor.
Okay, so using Seberang Jaya as an example, what made it conducive for these changes or initiatives to take roots there?
There's no, from the way I see it, there's no political will to do it. There's no political will to do it. And I've been mentioning this even during my campaign in Shah Alam, because I see there's a lot of potential to be utilized within the local council, especially the city councils that are in Selangor, MBPJ, MBSA, for example, to introduce as simple as a proper pathway. I agree with AB.
Okay.
a proper pathway for old folks, because all these people who are living in PJ, in Shah Alam, are old folks. A simple slip of the during walking, they can end up with fractures, and these things are not being implemented in like the crown jewel of Shah Alam is Tasik Shah Alam, or even in PJ. Most of the pedestrian walk, even in the PJ Old Town itself, is not accessible to the old folks. So these are real issues that I see. If we say that Selangor is a smart state, Selangor is a developed state, this should not be a concern anymore here in 2023. So I think, I've used part of this government before. There's no real political will for the past 5 years to really change this and also to introduce this.
I think that's not quite correct. You see, a lot of growth and development happens, a lot of changes happen, and it does take time to realize this. Let's address a couple of things that they pointed out. Look at walkways and bicycle path. In the last term, we have, in PJ alone, built 317 kilometers of pedestrian paths and cycling lanes. Now, PJ is big. There's still more to be done. It's not complete. We're not there yet, but the progress is there. The direction is there. If you look at accessibility, we have already started to implement ramps in commercial areas. Now, you go all over Malaysia, you rarely see sufficient ramps at shop lot areas. You always have to navigate steps. We started with PJ New Town. We have done it in a number of other parts of PJ. And actually right now in PJ Old Town, the ramps are under construction. And so yes, there is a lot of room to improve. And if you look at what we've been doing the last 15 years, we are always incrementally improving the situation.
Incrementally being the key word.
You don't build the city overnight. You don't transform the city overnight. And
but
you must remember that it's not a
this case doesn't
Sorry,
happen.
just let Rajiv.
It's not a blank slate. We're not building Putrajaya from a flat, empty piece of land.
Okay.
You are dealing with a live city, and you're continuously developing it. You're making the best use of the resource. I mean, I'm very honored that of all comparisons, Afif has chosen to point out to another Harapan run state as well run.
Yeah, which I represent.
Yeah.
Once did. Abby, you were about to say something?
Oh, no.
Okay.
But we shouldn't dismiss comparisons with Terengganu, because Perikatan has had the opportunity to show us what it can do. It governs 4 states in the north. And let's take the richest one, Terengganu. It has the opportunity to show us what it can do with its opportunity to govern. And that's what the voters of Selangor have to decide. Because it's not just the talk is easy, but it's in the doing. And if you can't do it in the 4 states that you govern, then I'm a bit skeptical how you do it.
Okay, that comes back to a conversation that I want to have about what voters expect and what they're voting for. So, but we're going to take a very quick break here. We'll be right back on this very special episode of Consider This. Make sure you stay tuned. Welcome back to Consider This. I'm Melisa Idris. Let's continue our conversation with 3 candidates vying for a seat in the Selangor State Assembly. Dr. Afif Bahardin, who is the Perikatan National candidate for Taman Medan, Abby Lim, the MUDA candidate for Bandar Utama, and Rajiv Rishyakaran, Pakatan Harapan's candidate for Bukit Gasing. Now, the current narrative seems to revolve around the performance of the federal government, the unity government. I think pundits have gone so far as to say it's a referendum on Anwar Ibrahim's prime ministership. Abby, you said it is very difficult to disentangle that, the state issues and the federal issues. I want to interrogate that a little bit further. Why is it one and the same? Because this state elections, we're voting for people who will determine very separate issues from what federal government has been talking about or doing in the last 7 months, 8 months now.
Yeah, 8 months.
Yes. This is, the issues are different on the ground, but do you feel that it is being discussed in your campaign trail?
This is a systemic issue we have here in Malaysia. A lot of people still vote by the logo, not. So in MUDA, we want to focus on policy-based politics, not personality-based politics. This is something that we are focusing on. But we do realize that a lot of the voters still have the loyalty, party loyalty. They look at the logo, you can put a banana in it, they'll win, that sort of thing. So that is one thing that we want to tackle. Vote for a candidate that you think can work for the community, not because of blind loyalty.
Then does that put you at a disadvantage? Because incumbents tend to have an advantage. Those with experience might have an advantage of established networks. How do you plan to navigate some of those challenges, given that you are a first-time candidate? I mean, facts. First-time candidate going up against someone who is established and who won a huge majority in the previous state elections.
Well, we come in from a different perspective. My seat was strategically selected based on my skill set and my professional experience. So for Bandar Utama, it's urban. People that care about, the climate, environment, and also they walk a lot. They love their parks. They love to walk their dogs. They care about stray animals a lot. So these are the skill sets that I can bring to these communities. And my lack of political experience might be an advantage and might be a disadvantage, but it's up to the voters on how they want to see this.
How might it be an advantage?
Sorry?
How might it be an advantage for you?
Because I just focus on issues and solutions.
Okay, so
Yeah.
this is the MUDA politik baru that you're talking about.
Yeah,
Okay.
so people first.
And Rajiv, you recently had a town hall to focus on policies for Bukit Gasing.
Yes.
Okay, I want to know, in that town hall, what were the policies that people were talking about? How do you disentangle state-level governance from what's happening at a federal level?
I think it's very difficult to disentangle it. Now, a lot of people don't really see the difference between the jurisdiction. They just look at the three of us. Do they want Perikatan, do they want Harapan, or they want someone else? And this
MUDA.
It could be MUDA, it could be PSM, it could be an independent candidate. And so people don't really say that, okay, no, this jurisdiction is the federal government, so I'll be angry at only the federal government. Or this jurisdiction is the state government, and then I'll only be angry at my state government representative, but not my federal government. It just doesn't work like that. And I think this is same in a lot of other countries. Like in America, when the support for Obama was high, that fell through and trickled down to all the other Democrat candidates at the local level. And so that's, I think, how we as humans also function. And so that's something that doesn't surprise me. But yes, I did have that town hall. I'm trying to cater to all segments of society. We've got people who want the ceramah. We've got people who want intellectual discourse. And that's why I did both. I do both to engage the different segments. And this is something that I will continue to do if I'm still in office for one more term.
So overwhelmingly, what were the things that they raised? And I'm trying to get a gauge of what is it that people expect from their aduns, their incumbent aduns.
All right. I think there was a wide variety of things raised: infrastructure, public transport, climate change, the environment, and I'm happy to take on all these questions and address them. I think when it comes to town planning, open spaces, these are very precious in PJ. Petaling Jaya residents treasure the open spaces. And one of the things that I'm proud of is that in the last 15 years, we have preserved every single park in PJ. We have not sold off a single padang to a developer in Petaling Jaya.
Yeah.
We've gazetted them all and we've protected them all.
Not yet.
But I don't say not yet, because it's 15 years of track record. I'm very saddened to see what has happened in KL, because in the last 2 years in KL, since the Sheraton move from 2020 until 2022, during the Perikatan's government, rule and government, 52 parks in KL were sold off, and were sold off quietly, without open tender or whatever. But how could it be? It's in the Star, 17 July. You can check it out. So
We will.
so this is something that is precious to PJ people, and we want to continue to uphold that. If you talk about town planning, yes, there are challenges that is inherited, and we're going to continue to strive to improve that. Every time we amend the town plan, like in PJ, we have a Rancangan Tempatan Petaling Jaya. It's a master plan to say what can be built where. It's a document that has been in existence for 20 over years, even before we got into office. And every few years it gets amended. And I would say that in the last 2 rounds of amendment, the changes have received wide support from the communities. We are not taking more areas and gazetting it to be high-rise. Contrary to that, we are taking commercial areas like, say, Section 13 PJ, the most recent exercise, and we are improving how the developers have to build in that land. Things like they have to surrender the 10 feet on the side of the building so we can build pedestrian connectivity to further improve pedestrian connectivity. We are putting a lot of drains underground so we create more space
Do you
for
think
sidewalks.
people are aware of this? Voters are aware? I mean, you mentioned, what was it, 46 initiatives for the Selangor State
Yes.
government, right? Do you think that voters concerned about what happens in their backyard understand what's being done, has seen the 46 initiatives, as opposed to thinking about coalition dynamics that are happening in the corridors of Putrajaya?
I think it's a balance of everything. Not everyone knows every single initiative, but for people who care about this, they notice it. Whenever we put up the master plan for public display, we do get a lot of PJ residents writing in their suggestions, their objections, their concerns. Interestingly, my opponents have not been writing in objections to the last 2-3 town planning amendment exercises. So we've got other political parties writing in to say that they disagree with some of the changes or they agree with some of the changes. We've got RAs writing in, resident associations writing in. We've got individuals. We've got businesses in the area. So there are people engaging. It's not the case where no one is engaging. People are engaging. But yes, of course, there'll never be a situation where everyone is in tune.
Understood. Since we are on the topic of urban planning, I want to talk about that. It seems to be one of the kind of pillar issues in Selangor State Elections. Let's talk about the PJD link, the Petaling Jaya Dispersal link that was called off the past couple of weeks. I think two weeks before the polls.
As a caretaker MB.
As a caretaker MB. So Afif, I'm going to start with you because you clearly have you have an issue with the fact that the caretaker MB had called off this very controversial link that it seems that nobody seems to want. What are your concerns?
Knowing Amiruddin, with due respect to him as his post, I think he has not made any major decision during the past 5 years and be decisive about it. I think the day after he made that announcement, he did came out and say, we could still reconsider the position if the EIA can be able to please the residents and also the constituents in PJ, the residents in PJ. But coming to Taman Medan, when I asked these questions to folks in Taman Medan, Rajiv and AB might be of a different view with me, because when PJD link being proposed, it has created hype in Bukit Gasing or even in Bandar Utama, but not in Taman Medan, in actual fact. Because to them, when I ask them, most of them give me a dumbfounding face and saying that, we heard about it, but we do not really know about it. But the comment that come after that is that, it's okay, development is coming to our side. Because this is where I want to bring in certain element to our discussion today. When you look at Taman Medan, when I mentioned earlier, there's a sense of discrimination and inequality, especially when they see, because Taman Medan is known as PJ Selatan, PJ South.
Okay.
Whereas even during the parliament session, parliament boundaries before is PJ Selatan and PJ Utara. So to them, the north are more of the affluent one, the one who always gets the benefits of the council, whereas we are the marginalized one. So when they hear about PJD, they feel that, development is coming, things are improving, because like you said, the expectation might be different. The people in Bukit Gasing, in Bandar Utama feels that they want to improve their quality of life, to have a better parks. Those people in Taman Medan also feels the same way. Okay. They want to have better parks, better infrastructure for them, where they can go. Because if you ask them, most of the constituents that I met, when I ask them, where do you go for jogging or where do you go to exercise, they say we cannot do it next to our house. We will go to Shah Alam or even Tasik Titi Wangsa.
Well, I find this a really unique opportunity to talk about the PJD link, because out of the 4 state constituencies that it cuts across, I have 3 candidates there. So I'm only missing Kinrara at this point in time. But the PJD link would have cut across all 3 of the constituents that you aim to represent. Now, my question to follow up, Afif, are you saying that you disagree with the cancellation or the termination of this?
I could not say on personal basis, I could not say whether I would represent whatever the policy the state government going to put in next, because even before PJD, KIDEX was actually being cancelled during Azmin's administration. And now, after the EIA being presented in April, only in July that AMI announced that PJD will not be approved by the state government. So we yet to see where this will go, because it's been there for 10 years. So from what I gather from my constituent, just from a very crude way of asking questions and engaging with them, I could not really come to a conclusion yet. I yet to see the whole EIA process, and also to see the engagement from my constituents themselves, whether they will be accepting this project or not. But I do acknowledge the concerns being raised by people in Bukit Gasing and also in Bandar Utama. Definitely, these kind of projects will have two different opinions. And I mean, I have some experience handling the Penang South Reclamation project before. So definitely, going through that process, which will be very helpful, especially the EIA process and the engagement process, that will actually give us, especially policymakers, like if I'm being elected as a Taman Medan Adun later, will give us a good input and also a good information for us to make decision whether this will represent the people of Taman Medan or not.
What about the both of you?
So I think the issue here is there's no transparency. Like what he said, we need the reports.
Yes.
But the residents, they can't make a decision because all these is hidden under the Official Secrets Act. And what is there to hide on a highway project?
So I think we should
like
clarify.
to add on what AB said.
Sorry,
What I did before with the Penang South Reclamation, when we did get the EIA, is that there's a transparency. When we talk openly about the project, we engage with all stakeholders.
Okay.
So I think that's crucial for, especially when I come to Taman Medan, when I ask people in Taman Medan, we do not know about the project. We heard about it, but we do not know about it. So there's a lot of campaigning, public display need to be done, engagement need to be done in order to
Rajiv?
come to a conclusion.
I think we should clarify. First of all, PJD Link is a project proposed by the private sector. It was not designed by the Selangor government. It was not proposed by the Selangor government. It was not proposed by any authority, but instead proposed by the private sector. The first stop is they got federal approval. And the federal approval came November 2021, back when the federal government was not us. All right. And the concession agreement, it was Perikatan National Government. The concession agreement was signed between the federal government and the concessionaire, the company. So it was, Selangor government was not a party to this agreement. One of the conditions that Selangor has, in order for them to come and actually start construction, to bring in the bulldozers, the tractors, and to start construction, is they need the approval from the Selangor government as well. And so from the onset, our government has been very clear that for any highway that is being proposed, any infrastructure project that is being proposed, and it's not just PJD Link, because there are a few other highways on the table, your Bangi Putrajaya Highway, which MUDA has not mentioned at all in their campaign, the Klang, from north to south of Klang, there's another highway proposal that the other parties have not mentioned at all. But every project that is proposed, when they come to the state, they need to come with their TIA, the Traffic Impact Assessment, Social and Environmental Impact Assessments, for the state to evaluate and to consider. Now, we know that PJD Link is a hot potato. There's a lot of objections. And the Menteri Besar has said, Amiruddin has said, not just recently, but more than a year ago, that if the highway that is finally proposed, because once they do their concession agreement, once they finalize their alignment with the federal government, they need to do their traffic impact assessment and the environment and social impact assessments. When they come back to the state, if they come back with something that is similar to KIDEX, then it's a no. Amir said that.
Okay.
Yeah, and now that it's just come back to the state. Now, they didn't come back in April. In April, the concessionaire submitted all the assessment reports to the federal government, not the state government, because the federal has 3 agencies, the Highway Authority looking at the traffic, Plan Malaysia looking at the SIA, and the DOE, Department of Environment, looking at the EIA. So they submitted it to them first.
Okay.
It was only a couple of weeks ago that it reached the state. So yes, we rejected. Amir said no, they cannot proceed.
So even though he was caretaker,
actually, it's a matter of policy principle on our side to say you cannot proceed. maybe Perikatan will say that they could proceed if they win government.
And what about their concerns
Because
of
it is not-
transparency?
it's not our
morally,
project
AMI
to cancel.
doesn't have the right to make that kind of such a big policy decision as a caretaker.
So
Menteri Besar.
what about the transparency of
Okay, but then,
the-
okay. So, right now, if we want to proceed with the project, then we would have to, to be fair, engage the residents to say that this is what the company has proposed, and these are all the impacts that are going to arise out of the project if the company.
As a Menteri Besar, he should wait after the election. If he is re-elected again as
You see,
a Menteri
this is
Besar,
like a no-win
then
situation.
he can make
If he
the
doesn't
decision
cancel it,
because
they will
there's
say
no engagement from the state government of Selangor with the people of
have
Selangor.
the constituents of Bukit Gasing raised this concern, and what do they think
think
about the PJD link? Most of them.
By and large, most of them are relieved that he said no. And by and large, most of them are relieved that he said
Is
no.
that the same?
Yeah, 93% of our community.
So yes, there are some that are saying what Afif is saying that, why didn't you wait until you were not caretaker government anymore, or why didn't you disclose? You see, we have no intention to approve it. I mean, AMI has no intention to let it go. So why prolong the process? If you have an intention to let it go, then it should go to the public. There should be consultation with the public
Okay.
on that. But in this case, we have already gone into great depths with KIDEX. And you see, with KIDEX, we didn't say no just off the bat. Every infrastructure project that comes in, okay, let's evaluate it professionally. Let's look at what is the impact on traffic. And in the case of KIDEX in 2015, what was submitted, when we looked through the traffic impact study, it did not improve traffic in
So,
PJ.
are you saying that the federal government now, which is Harapan, going to change the decision that has been made before?
No, you see,
No?
what do you call it? The agreement was signed by the previous government.
Yeah, but there's
And that's
so
why there's
many
a lot of
agreements.
frustrations.
There's so many agreements that has been cancelled by the PMX, and also
Cancelling-
has been called off.
Okay.
I think,
So
right-
that's an academic matter. I think what is clear is we've
Nothing
said no.
academic here.
There's no transparency. How are people going to
just-
decide without...
I just want to be clear here. So
Yeah.
right now, as it stands, the PJD link has been
It's
So to
shelved,
me,
right?
to me,
It's off
to
the
me,
table.
This is just more of a political soundbite that AMI wants to people of PJ
But-
to listen
but-
to and
but
vote
now-
for Harapan.
But nonetheless, he has put it in writing.
If there is a
No.
policy U-turn, then he will be held accountable
Yes.
to that.
Yeah,
Should
but-
he win Menteri Besar seat
Yeah.
again? That is what I'm saying. And you've raised your concerns about transparency and the fact that he made this announcement as a caretaker Menteri Besar. I'm going to take a very quick break here so we can all catch our breaths. But we'll
Okay.
come back and continue this conversation in just a few minutes. Stay tuned to consider this. Welcome back to the final segment of this special 1-hour edition of Consider This. I have 3 candidates from the who are contesting in the Selangor State election on this Saturday, and we have Rajiv Rishyakaran from Bukit Gasing. He's hoping to defend his seat there. Abi Lim from MUDA, contesting in Bandar Utama, and also Dr. Afif Bahardin, who is contesting under Perikatan Nasional for Taman Medan. So let's talk a little bit about this last leg, or the final leg of the campaign, and what needs to be done. There's a lot of discussion around the around the topic of voter fatigue, voter confusion. Sometimes I talk anecdotally to people. They say they're not quite sure what we're voting again. You know, we just voted in the general elections last November. When you come across conversations like this, how do you tell them that their vote matters? Afif.
During the campaign period, I always say about the voter turnout during the parliament election, especially for Petaling Jaya, especially for Taman Medan, which is quite low relatively in Taman Medan compared to other places. And I did mention that definitely this, to a certain degree, this state election is to send signal to the federal government with whatever they are not happy, discontent that they have with the current situation and the direction of the federal government. And somehow, especially among the Malay voters, when I went and see them, quite a number of them are actually very responsive and would like to come out and vote for this coming state election. And but the response is a bit lukewarm compared to the other races. So I think this is where a huge challenge for me. I did mention to most of my Indian voters that I met, I did mention about a film called Mandela. It's on Netflix. You should watch it because it's about the importance of one vote in a particular setting that will be able to transform the policy and also and change the direction of the nation. So I did use this kind of stories in order to encourage them to come out and vote, but it's yet to see this Saturday whether that will translate into a higher turnout of voters. I think the current situation is that the general sense that I have among the voters is that they are in the anger mode because they are not happy with the goods prices, they are not happy with the cost of living, they are not happy with the current situation of the federal government, and to a certain degree we are also talking about some of the policies like all the initiatives that the state government of Selangor has done but has not been reached out to the general public, in particular place like Taman Medan. And quite a number of them are I mean as simple as this free water.
If I may interject, what makes you think that anger will translate into showing up at the ballot box and then voting for the non-incumbent?
Because like I said, the national sentiment now and also the state sentiment somehow intertwined between them. And this has created a general feeling that we have to show something. And when I talk to most of the, for example, when I talk to people in Pasar Jalan Osman in PJ Old Town, one of the biggest issue when I relate the national issue, the cost of living, the goods prices are rising, and there's lack of buying power among the public.
Right.
This has affected their business, especially in Pasar Jalan Osman.
But Afif, if you won that seat, you wouldn't be able to affect the cost of living or the prices of goods.
I disagree with that because if we manage to form the state government of Selangor, the introduction of a lot of policies that we want to introduce is to give back money to the people in their own pocket so that will reduce their burden in other segments of things that they have to spend. For example, we're going to introduce 400 ringgit monthly financial aid to 65,000 families in Selangor with the 2 billion reserves that we have in the state government at the moment. The approach that we are taking is a bit different with what Pakatan Harapan's approach is, because now in the dire need of financial assistance, Perikatan Nasional feels that we have to spend more. It's okay to have a deficit budget. It's okay that we go into the state coffer in order for us to spend more so that the people could have that extra edge to spend to stimulate the economy.
I want to ask you, Afif, since we're on you and when you go meet people on the ground, do they know who you are? Are they aware that
somehow, yes.
This is Dr. Afif Bahardin from Perikatan Nasional?
He has huge billboards.
Is that and I asked this because you brought it up earlier. Your previous experience in in Seberang Jaya and also in GE15, in which you lost. Are candidates concerned that you had once resigned from your EXCO position in Penang? You had been sacked from the assembly person role in Penang and lost in GE15. Do they come to you and say, why do we put our trust in someone who hasn't had the best track record previously?
This is what I take it positively when this create curiosity among the voters, especially when they ask, you're from Penang or are you from Selangor? That's the question that I always get. So I have to explain to them, I was born in Asunta Hospital, I was raised in Shah Alam, and I used to serve in Penang because I was working there. I started my political career there. Now I'm back to Selangor to serve the people of Selangor. So they know my bid in Shah Alam, and because of probably not of the best track record, but of a bit of a dramatic kind of a life political career that I had.
You have had a very colourful career. But your close affiliation with Azmin Ali, does that hurt or help your chances?
It does help because people associates me with him and people knows him, and I able to talk about what he has done before in Selangor, and people start to remember that because there's only 3 Menteri Besar under the Pakatan Rakyat and or Pakatan Harapan tenure, which is Tan Sri Khalid, Azmin and Amir. So comparing these 3, I mean, I always ask the question, do you remember how long Azmin became a Menteri Besar? the most answer that I get is 2 terms. Because they feel that there's so many things that Azmin has done and it takes him 2 terms to be Menteri Besar. But in actual fact, it was only 3.5 years. So in that short period of time, Azmin has managed to inspire the people of Selangor. So I think this is where the challenge for us Perikatan Nasional, not only riding on what Azmin has done before, but also to talk about what we are offering to the people of Selangor.
Rajiv,
I
you
think
wanted
as
to say something.
inspiring as you think Azmin was, he was defeated in his own home ground of Gombak in the last general elections.
You wanted to interject to
Yeah,
something
Nurul
he was
Izzah
about to say?
defeated in Pantau.
So let
What were you about to interject?
what I would say to people in these last few days, and what I've been saying to people, is that every vote counts, because right now people will go to vote for a wide combination of reasons. I think there's no one single factor that guides your vote. The candidate, the party, the performance of the federal government, the performance of the state government in the past, the leader of the party, the other members of the party. There's a wide variety
people
of...
will vote the way they want to vote.
The way they want to vote.
And based on the
Yes.
issues that they matter to them.
So what I want to impress, and what I hope we all consider when we go cast our vote this Saturday, is that you are choosing a state government for the next 5 years. You are choosing somebody to be government, and basically 2 parties have put up a bid to govern Selangor, with all due respect to the other parties who have put up a minority of candidates. The Menteri Besar this Saturday will either come from Perikatan or from Harapan. And in this bid, do we want Harapan to remain in government in Selangor? I think that's something that all voters in Selangor need to think about and to answer when we go cast our ballots this Saturday. Do we want Harapan to continue 5 more years, or do we want Perikatan to come in? I have grave concerns. I have grave concerns if the state changes hands. I've read your manifesto. I've seen the Perikatan and how they've increased a lot of offerings that they've put there. But I'm also very mindful that sometimes it's one thing to talk, it's another thing to do. And in the doing, in the 4 states that Perikatan govern, a lot of the items that they put in the manifesto, they don't practice it in their 4 states. What we have put in our manifesto, it's a build-up of what we have been doing. That's why we do not promise the sky and the stars, because we expect to govern. We expect to govern, and we need to put things there that we can
I
definitely
have to ask you,
deliver.
Rajiv, in the thick of campaigning, now that we are almost last days to polling day, in hindsight, do you think that it was the right move to decouple state elections from the general elections? And is that something that you think we should practice going forward?
Well, actually, this is something which I expected a lot of people to ask, but surprisingly, hardly anyone is asking.
Well, I'm asking.
Asking this anymore. For me, as a campaigner, as someone who is in the thick of it, I would definitely prefer to do 2 in 1, rather than to fight 2 separate elections over 2 years, or 2 separate elections, whatever the time gap is. I think, Dr. Afif, you also agree. We would rather fight the elections together, and but it's also okay. We are very okay to stand and defend the record that we have. I'm proud of the record that we have achieved in the last 15 years. We are not a perfect government, but comparing to the alternatives, I think we have something to offer the people of Selangor that's better, or something that is proven. And just look at the last 5 years.
Abby, what is MUDA's goal in all of this? In contesting as a third force, in contesting against some heavyweights, some seats that are long established. What is the best scenario outcome for MUDA, and what are you hoping that voters keep in mind as they go to the ballot box?
Well, you know what happens in a monopoly? There's complacency, there's a lack of accountability. So these are those issues that we want to tackle. And if we look at state elections, the aduns are supposed to represent the people. So this is a short message that I want to give out to voters. When you give out a vote to any candidate, you're giving away your power to this person to represent you. Are they actually voicing out for you? Do they know your issues? Are they actually representing your ideals, your principles? Or are you just voting just because of a long-term party loyalty? So I think having a separate election for state and federal is a great way to educate the public on the difference between federal and state government, because it can be very messy, noisy if both of the elections come together. But right now they do see that, look, this adun will actually focus on me, my community, but federal policies. So I think it's a positive thing that we have a separate election.
And you mentioned a bit earlier, there's a concern of protest votes. So on top of voter apathy and fatigue, that there's this issue of people either using their ballot to protest or abstaining from voting altogether. How, given that MUDA is coming in as a, as an alternative to the two coalitions, to establish coalitions, what is that vote transferability beyond coming in to vote for the established versus voting for the untested versus not voting at all?
I think it's a very high chance because, as you've seen just now, a lot of past arguments, past
There's a lot of baggage here at the
a
table.
lot of baggages. So MUDA comes in as a check and balance for any government. We understand that it is important to work with government to actually create changes, to actually improve policies, or to actually create all these policies.
I like the use of check and balance, but I want to challenge you on that.
Yeah, sure.
How strongly can MUDA provide that check and balance if you find yourself with a seat in the State Assembly?
Well, it's because our political party, MUDA, we're a very new political party. It's almost a flat structure. We do not have a long hierarchy. So to be able to speak out on issues, for example, PJD link, I don't really have to check with 5 people whether I can speak up about this or not. So the freedom to speak without hindrance and gag orders is something that we at MUDA has.
Okay. And can I ask you what your takeaways have been from the last 11 days of campaigning? Correct me if I'm wrong, but MUDA seems to attract a lot of feedback, both positive and negative. I think your people are curious, are vigilant, are watching. So what have been your takeaways, and how would you, in the last final days of campaigning, leverage what you know from the past few days?
It's very simple for me. People are going to talk. I'm pretty sure both of you have gone through the same thing. So we just focus on our job, our issues. And
do you find it to be a gendered response to your campaigning?
A gender response? Sorry?
Yes, meaning has there been a skew because you are a woman, you're a young woman, and contesting for the first time? Has some of the feedback from campaigning been gender-based?
Well, definitely. For me, it was a lot of looks, appearance, that I looked like some Chinese DJ that took over the social media. But at the same time, I had the opportunity to have that platform to talk about issues that are important to me. So it's about how you look at which sort of perspective you look at it. There can be positive, negative, but we always look at the positive side on how we can use these platforms.
I'm always curious to know of a candidate's experience when they encounter the campaign trail for the first time as a candidate. Rajiv, I want to ask you, your final days of campaigning, it's really, as an incumbent, your position is to try not to lose the seat.
Of course.
To try not to, it's your seat to lose. So what do you think might, in the last few days, make sure that it is status quo for you?
All right. I think the engagement has been ongoing. I think for the next few days, getting people to come out to vote is the most crucial thing. Getting our supporters to come out to vote is very important, and it's beyond my seat. We are looking at it as a state government election. It is 56 seats at play, and it's not just about one seat, it's about who will form the state government. And who forms the state government will affect how Bukit Gasing is run, will affect how Selangor is run. And right now, the election awareness is picking up, and in the last 4 days, it's how we cross the finish line. And I think it's that to get that final realization that we are really choosing a state government, and which state government should best represent us.
In the campaign that you've seen, has it been fair play campaigning?
Relatively fair play, but it always be mudslinging. There are accusations thrown at our Menteri Besar, at AMI, which if they were to hold such proof of such accusations, they should just lodge police reports and MACC reports. I think this kind of campaigning is unhealthy and we shouldn't have it. But I think within PJ, it's relatively not like that.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
good. Last push, final 4 days.
What the focus, like I mentioned earlier, the voters turnout during the last general election was a bit low in Taman Medan. So the focus now is to create the mood and the campaign, especially because it's a highly congested area. So it's quite easy for me to go and campaign and try to create the mood among the public in Taman Medan to come out and vote. And there's a lot of walkabouts now. We're ramping up the numbers of walkabouts and also engagement programs with our voters. We also put up call centers to call voters to advise them and also to let them know when is the election day, and also we are focusing on that. And definitely issues, I think quite a number, the usage of TikTok has somehow helped me to introduce my policies, what are things that I want to do with images, with videos, and when I speak about it. So these are the things that a bit of different from the past 3 elections that I was involved. So I think this is where the last few days more social media engagement will be done. Especially you see there's a huge number of voters in the segment of 18 to 25 years old who didn't really come out and vote the last time. So I think this is where the focus will be.
Okay, so young voters.
Young voters.
Okay. Do you think the campaign period was sufficient to get people to recognize you as a candidate? Do you think the campaign period was sufficient? Too long or too short?
You can't really say whether it's sufficient, but with whatever time that you have to optimize it as much as possible. So it's a matter of how you strategize your campaign, and how you'll be able to reach out to as many people as possible. So I think this is where the tacticals within during this election period is that it requires more machinery in order to be able to reach out, especially in places like Taman Medan, and also I believe in Bandar Utama and also Bukit Gasing, because these are urban areas and this will always be the highly contested areas in the next elections to come.
Yes.
Because this is where the power brokers are, where
Yes. Why it's so interesting to watch
swing votes
these
will
seats.
happen. Yeah.
Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Afif, Abby, Rajiv, for being on the show today. I appreciate your time, taking time out of your day, and wish you all the best of luck going
Thank
into
you very
Saturday.
much.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
your
Thank
time.
you for having us.
That's all we have for you on this episode of Consider This. I'm Melisa Idris, signing off for the evening. Thank you so much for watching, and good night.